Story 1. I, a 50-year-old woman, rent a place along a river in Ontario, Canada, every year in August for 14 days. My rental includes exclusive use of a cabin, a private deck with a hot tub, and a furnished gazebo. Mine is the only rental that comes with a gazebo. Just to the east of my place is another, smaller cabin with just a dock and a hot tub. One day, I return from a quick grocery shopping trip. As I am unpacking my car, a young woman walks over and climbs onto my deck. She has obviously either just showered or just gotten out of the hot tub, as she's in a bathrobe. She says, "Hi, I just wanted to stop by and tell you that my partner and I will be doing a photo shoot in the gazebo tomorrow morning. Just letting you know, as a courtesy, since we will be moving your boats out for the photo shoot. Don't worry, we will put them back." Now, the gazebo is attached to the deck that surrounds my rental cabin. My kayaks are in the gazebo because rain is forecast. It's been raining off and on all day. I have exclusive use of the entire area, and no one from the other rentals is supposed to come near my space. This information is part of the owner's orientation for all new arrivals. I'm standing at my cabin door, with grocery bags in my hands, dumbfounded that she thinks she can take over the gazebo that is part of my rental. She continues with a barrage of questions. "So, are you staying here alone? Or do you have your husband and kids with you? Do you own the cabin? How much did it cost? How long have you been here?" The questions come rapidly, with no pauses for answers. I respond, "You are in my private space, please leave." She replies, "I'm just being friendly." I say firmly, "No, you are intruding on my space and invading my privacy. Your questions are intrusive and unsettling. You will not be doing a photo shoot tomorrow or any time in my gazebo. Please leave now." With a snippy tone, she retorts, "No need to get snippy. We are doing the shoot tomorrow, so you better not interfere. Given your attitude, I think it's best that you head into town by 8. Don't come back before 2. I reply, "Not happening. Get off my deck. Get out of my space now." She stamps her foot and exclaims, "You are being unreasonable. You're the only one with a gazebo. You need to share." I firmly respond, "No, I don't. Leave now." I went into the cabin, locked the door, and immediately messaged the owner. I've been renting here for years, and the owner and I have become friends. They didn't show up for their photo shoot, and the owner had to chase them out of the rental the next morning. They were still in bed an hour past checkout time. Story 2. Background. At the time my boyfriend Mark and I met, we also met his ex-friend. We'll just say he's a choosing beggar, we'll call him Dan. He needed a place to stay twice, but revenge comes with the second stay. So BF and I had got our own place. It was really cheap and shabby, but it was ours. We lived quietly and happily before we had moved in during a month-long breakup between me and Mark. Dan and Mark hung out a lot. You see, Dan's girlfriend just had a baby and things went sour when she decided that he was definitely not going to be around her child with his sexist and abusive ways. He bragged about beating her and using her for her car. Thankfully, the mom was smart. So one day Mark got a text from Dan, saying he needed to stay for a while, and I regretfully had pity for him and told Mark to say yes. The first time, he slept on the couch, stole our knife and joked around about killing us, told us to obey him, and constantly told my boyfriend to leave me behind my back because I'm fat and ugly. He ate all our food and paid nothing. Mark and I were scared of him, so we just listened. Eventually, Dan left to go stay with another friend of his. I was so glad that he'd stop influencing my boyfriend to abuse me out of fear of Dan, and to finally have a quiet house again. A few months later, Dan texted my boyfriend, but we ignored it, so he ended up calling me. I told him to get lost, but he apologized and said he wants to stay to better himself so that he could eventually get rights to his child. Again, I was an idiot and said okay after he wouldn't stop apologizing and begging. So again, he came over. For the first few days, I tolerated his drinking and need for control. But around day 5, Mark asked Dan to clean up his room. I was at work that day, came home to my stuff in the garbage. Needless to say, I was pissed, but again, I didn't do anything. I just grabbed my stuff out. I just started my new job at a fruit and veg shop, so I didn't want to get too stressed about anything. One night, my boyfriend and I had a fight because of Dan, and I left the house, went to the community bathroom and cried. I came back to the house to find my boyfriend being cussed out by Dan about getting rid of me, saying if he couldn't do it, that he'd do it for him. He wanted to kill me. My boyfriend gave Dan the keys and got up and left. I ran in and grabbed my debit card and then ran after my boyfriend. Mark tried to break up with me if I didn't run away to another state with him to get away from Dan. We fought, but I chased him all night, making sure he didn't do anything stupid. I called people, but no one could help at the time. I had an idea. While my boyfriend was crying and hugging me, apologizing for letting everything that happened happen, I thought about what to do to get him out of our house that he was in, probably ruining everything in there. Eventually, I thought about it, and I made Mark come with me to the police station, hoping they could do anything. After waiting and telling them Dan's details, they said we can remove him from the house, but he can come back after you if we don't find a warrant. My boyfriend was backing out, but because Dan had been arrested before, I was praying that at some point they'd find something. Eventually, the cops drove us towards our house as they got a call from the station saying that yes, there was an outstanding warrant for 2 missed court dates. I cried in the car of relief and told the police officers all of the emotional and physical torment I went through and how he abused his ex. The police officer turned to me and gave me a hug. Luckily, these were 2 fun cops. Cop, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Are you okay? Me? No, I'm done. I don't want him to come back and threaten us anymore. Cop, well, it's 5 a.m. Let's have some fun. I want you 2 to pull a stunt with me, so there's no way he can tell that you were the ones who let the police know of his whereabouts, and so that we can make sure he doesn't come back. Me, I've been really wanting to get him where it hurts, but I don't have any plans. The cop then came up with a masterpiece of an arrest. Mark was going to go through the window, open the door from the inside, and then we would pretend like we went back and slept for the night. Then we waited until Dan had to pee. Since there was no bathroom inside the place, he had to go outside. Once the police saw him, they let him go inside, and we signaled them through the window, leaving the door unlocked. The cops came running down the hill and into the house with their guns pulled out. Cops, open the door, Dan. We know you're in there. We have a warrant. Open this door right now. Me in a pretend tired and unknowing state. Oh my God, what the hell? The cops busted in while Dan tried to go through the window. They pulled him to the ground, and he ended up getting a blood nose. Dan, what did I do? I didn't do anything. Get off of me. Mark, yeah, what are you doing? What the hell happened? Why in my house? One of the cops winked at me. A neighbor let us know that there was a new resident here, as it was a high-crime area. The police do get notified, but we kept Dan and his identity secret. But Dan did tell one neighbor his full name. Dan, oh what? I'm gonna kill her. She's dead. At this point, I have to hold back the laughter. The cops put him in handcuffs, and he was arrested for the 2 court dates and resisting arrest. The cops then fake yelled at us and warned us about having criminals in our home, but when the other cop put him in the back of the car, the cop, who came up with the plan, hugged me and wished that I was satisfied with the revenge. Of course I was. They left and me and my boyfriend got some well-deserved rest. We moved out 3 days later and Dan went to jail for 6 months. He texted us later asking again, to which we lied and said that unfortunately the cops are watching us now. I said he's a jerk for everything he did, to which I just got a few ugly and fat texts. Needless to say, he's gone, and not only did he get some time out for what he's done, but is paying off a hefty fine as well. Sweet, sweet revenge. Story 3. I was in boot camp with a bunch of other guys, and there's this one jerk who everyone hates. He doesn't get along with anyone, and he's extremely selfish and rude to people. For example, me and my buddies might be chatting, and he would yell at us to shut up. He insults people and calls them names for the slightest mistakes during training. He's so hated by everyone that he is the only one not invited when we plan to get together on one of our free days. One time, he argued with the whole bunk room because he wants to turn off the fan at bedtime due to the noise, while everyone else wants it on because it's hot as hell. Mind you, summer nights can reach up to 35–40 degrees Celsius in my country, and nobody can get a good night's sleep when we're all sweating and cramped in a tiny room. Yet, the bully even went against the wishes of the majority and sneakily turned it off in the middle of the night. There's another instance where he nearly started a fight in the back of a van just because a guy accidentally bumped his head onto his head. He slapped the other guy's back of the head hard in retaliation, and one thing led to another. To give some context, this is a tiny military van with up to 10 or more people crammed inside. Accidentally bumps and such are to be expected. What's even worse is that me and some others are holding both of the guys back to prevent a fight. Bully wasn't even apologizing or explaining his side. He just kept provoking with lines like, "What? You want to go? Come at me, dumb jerk," and such. Luckily, things didn't escalate. One day, I saw an opportunity for some payback. I'm the last one to leave the room one morning, and I had the chance to intentionally untidy his bunk bed to get him in trouble. Since we're expected to keep our stations tidy at all times, that's a big no-no where you could get punished with exhausting exercises. Looking back, though, does he really deserve it? Was it childish? It did seem petty looking back. I got an innocent person punished for something he didn't do, even though he's a jerk. My only defenses are that it's not a huge punishment. In fact, some sergeants might let you off with a strike and a warning. For those wondering why nobody talked to the superiors about it, you can't really report him for anything verbal in boot camp, and the sergeants don't care if the recruits get along or not. Bully doesn't violate any official rules save for that time he almost started a fight. Story 4. Quick backstory. I live with my fiancé, who stays with his mother due to her health issues, which prevent her from having a regular job. We live in the master bedroom, which is down a hall by the kitchen, and you can see the living room from our door. This will be important later. A few weeks ago, I took in a puppy that had been abandoned near my house. Cast. Me, the ultimate puppy lover. M, my future mother-in-law. MF, my fiancé. The other day, M went grocery shopping with MF, while I stayed at home to take care of the elderly gentleman M usually looks after. I rarely let my dogs out of my room, except during feeding times, as they're both still young and tend to get on M's nerves. I have another dog, an Australian Shepherd and German Shepherd mix, who is 2 years old. That day, since M was out shopping, I let my dogs out while I cleaned the house. M and MF returned, and my dogs were still out. My puppy was sitting in the recliner where M usually sits when she's not in bed, making MF and me take care of the elderly man. M burst through the door without warning, so I didn't have time to move the puppy out of the way. She hit him with a bag she was carrying, but I wasn't too worried since it only had a box of tea bags in it. In his haste to get out of her way, my puppy jumped over the side of the chair and knocked over her small end table. M threw down the bag she was holding and demanded that I start making food for everyone. Luckily, we had burritos, so I began heating them up. Everything was going smoothly until M noticed that my puppy had knocked her ashtray and cigarettes off the table. She started yelling at MF and me to find them right this instant. I ignored her, as I always do when she's in one of her fits, and continued watching the microwave heat up MF's burritos. Mef found the cigarettes but not the ashtray and went to his room with a "Be quiet, Mom." This left me to listen to M rant about respect and how it's her house and all that. Finally, the microwave dinged, so I put in the next plate and walked back to my room to take MF his food. M realized I had left the kitchen and started yelling again. Now, I have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD) and multiple personality disorder (MPD, so I was on the verge of breaking down. I sat on the bed, taking deep breaths. Mef walked out of the room and yelled, "Be quiet, Mom." She was bringing me my plate and then was going to make everyone else's. Now, it's important to note that I always make sure everyone else eats before I do. Em started yelling again about her ashtray. I'd had enough and yelled back from my bed. Well, if you hadn't violently removed my puppy from your chair, it would still be on your table. She lost her temper. She screamed, "Violence? I'll show you violence. Come here, Tank." Tank is my puppy's name. Tank, who had done nothing wrong, was lying on the hospital bed in our living room, where the elderly man sleeps. I got up and walked to my open bedroom door, and there was Em, leaning over my puppy with her hand around his snout, as if she was going to bite him. Now, my animals are like my children, and I will defend them fiercely. I rushed across the kitchen into the living room, putting my body between her and Tank while standing on the bed. This was our conversation, all in shouting. Em, don't push me, you witch. Let's note here that I had never been intimate with anyone until I met her son, and to date, he has been my only partner. Me. Then don't touch my dogs, you piece of work. She then punched me in my shoulder blade, and her dog, a pit bull, terrier, and chihuahua mix, about 30 pounds, jumped on the bed and bit the underside of my arm. I swung my arm toward the dog's mouth, knowing he would move. When I looked back up to deal with her, MF was standing between us. I was so mad that my chest hurt, and I couldn't feel one of my arms. I jumped off the bed, picked up my puppy, and on my way to my room, I said, "This is why your daughter preferred to run off with some random guy she just met online, and why your other son refuses to come home at night. You are an ignorant bitch. Yes, I spelled it out to her. I went to my room, shutting the door with both my dogs safely inside. A screaming match ensued between M and F, which resulted in him coming to our room. I eventually left the room to make food for M and the elderly man. Sorry for the long post, and thank you for reading. Story 5. I'm sorry. I need to vent because I'm shocked and worried about this child. This just happened, and I'm running on adrenaline. My Fitbit says my heart rate is 130 beats per minute. For context, I currently live in a suburb in Texas. My son's primary school is on a long stretch of road. It's 5 lanes wide, with a speed limit of 70 miles per hour. During school zone hours, the speed limit drops to 30 miles per hour. The school sits right in the middle, and the crosswalks are at least half a mile away in each direction, maybe more. The point is, it's not close. One crosswalk is closer than the other, but it's not a brisk walk, it's a trek. This road is also very popular since it leads into the city and serves all levels of public education. At any given hour, there are large trucks, working vehicles, and all sorts of cars, making it heavily congested during school hours. So, here we are. My husband is pulling out of the school, and it's a chore because of the heavy traffic. He notices a child right next to us on the sidewalk, showing signs of looking down these 5 lanes. He better not be trying to cross the street. What the heck? He mutters before slamming the pedal. The child had stepped into the road, and my husband immediately pulled into the street to stop the people in that lane. The child pulls back. I jump out of the car and shout at the child to immediately discourage any further action. "Stop!" I cried. Let me tell you, this child was not fine. I couldn't get a word out of him, and he couldn't explain to me what he was doing. He was panicked, blubbering, and looking toward the other side of the road. I had to hold him so he'd stop trying. He kept looking toward a cyclist on the other side of the road. She was yelling at me, but you can't hear much over 5 lanes of traffic. I figured it was his mother, so I asked, "Do you want me to drive him to you?" She did not like that. This woman barged across those 5 lanes, further reinforcing negative stereotypes about cyclists. She was fully geared up, yet she left her bike on the other side. She tossed it down and stormed onto the road, holding out her hand. The cars rolled to a stop, the last one being a gigantic Texas truck whose hood was at her shoulder. "What's the problem here?" she had the nerve to ask me as if I hadn't just prevented an accident. "Are you his mother?" I asked, trying to assess her character beyond her preferred mode of transportation. "Yes, I am." She rambled on, but I don't speak irrationality, so I cut her off. "Okay, but he was trying to cross the street." I asterisk no asterisk. We're asterisk practicing asterisk. My goodness, I can't express how much my heart sank when I realized this woman had deliberately put her 8-year-old son in this dangerous situation and fully intended for him to cross on his own, as if exposure therapy was the solution to overcoming the fear of being hit by a vehicle. Now, I'm not one to meddle in other people's business, especially when their tone screams entitlement, a skill you master living in Texas. However, I am shamelessly confrontational when it involves a child who can't defend themselves. I turned toward my husband, who had now parked back inside the school's lot, and yelled, "Hey, it's okay. They're just practicing endangering the life of a child." He shouted back, "What?" because, again, 5 lanes of traffic separate us. But I pretended he could hear me and added, "I know. Who does that? Not me. A normal person," because I was just being a bit sarcastic right back at that lady. She had taken her son to the side, knelt down, and was holding his hands while rambling about me. When people go off like that, you can control the energy they spend on you by keeping them engaged in some way. I wanted her to stay there because I wasn't going to let it go. I needed the good guys, though the ones who could handle this level of irrationality. I stormed right into the school building and knocked on the office window, where 3 lovely women with varying levels of administrative power were already there. I opened up dramatically again. "This is urgent. A child tried to cross the street on his own. He almost got hit. I stopped him, and his mother told me they were practicing." Those wonderful women were in disbelief, as any reasonable person would be. They tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, but once I pointed out that she was in her cyclist gear and her bike was 5 lanes away, they started calling in the cavalry. The lady most determined to stop her grabbed the walkie-talkie from another lady and stormed out. The now walkie-talkie-less lady asked me a bit more about what happened. I reiterated my brief experience, emphasizing the road being crossed right there where the bike lay, and she finally believed me. They mostly talked among themselves about their rules for children on that road. It was reassuring to hear they already had specific guidelines in place, as one would assume. It was the whole reason I went to report the incident. I only knew that jaywalking was illegal across the entire state of Texas. I break that rule myself on occasion, but it's a different level of irresponsibility to make a young child do it alone, especially in Texas, where adding another lane is the only approach to infrastructure next to toll roads. At this point, it wasn't my problem anymore. I only lingered slowly, like the smug person I am, to make sure the walkie-talkie lady managed to engage the mother. When we drove past them, the mother glared daggers at me while yelling at the walkie-talkie lady, so I waved at her with a warm smile. Bless her heart, she thinks she's right. Deep down, though, I'm still panicked that this even happened. I know the school will handle it. They have a really good security system with established rules and volunteers because, sadly, that's what we've had to resort to since the Uvalde incident. They will make sure this lady knows she's not exempt from these keep children safe rules as long as she's on their property. She's free to endanger him elsewhere, though. Honestly, that last part is what will keep me up at night. That poor child was a mess when I spoke to him. He couldn't communicate with me, and he seemed terrified of his mother. The least I can do is keep an eye out for him each day after school to make sure she doesn't try to pull that stunt again. Well, that wraps up my story. My heart rate is now 115. This helped, I guess. Edit. Hello, let me clear things up. Rules were broken by the child to get where he was. He was missed by people because he walked through a grassy area. There's no sidewalk or crosswalk connected there, and the area across those lanes is forested with no houses, stores, or buildings whatsoever. His mother probably instructed him to get there. I'm not sure where she came from or where she intended to go. All my comments are jokes. I use humor to cope. Read this in a sardonic tone. I don't hold any strong opinions about anything. I hated everyone involved who put the child in danger. Lastly, we have a tiny car, and even I miss the child because it's such an insane place to expect to see a child. His mother crossed a lot of boundaries for her convenience that no one thought possible. This will probably lead to a new rule now. Story 6. So, I debated writing about this for a while because I still feel selfish and entitled for being upset about it. But the more I think about it, the more I tell myself, I don't deserve this, so here it is. I finally got the nerve. I did omit a lot of detail, though, to stick strictly to what's relevant to the situation. I'm 23, female to male, and after high school, I continued living with my mom while searching for a place of my own. It's not that I wanted to live at home either. In fact, I was entirely fed up with the cramped space and lack of privacy. The area, though, was so expensive that you'd need 5 roommates, a sacrifice of a leg, and a deal with a demon king to afford rent, especially on my income at the time. For reference, no apartment was under $2,000 a month if it had 2 bedrooms or more, and I was earning minimum wage. My mom was fine with me living with her, and I kept to my own space, helped pay rent, went grocery shopping, and did chores around the house. Every few days when I didn't work nights, I'd make dinner for everyone, so things were going decently for a few years while I continued looking for a place. Then, last year, my younger sister suddenly had a baby with no preparation. It was one of those, I'll figure it out after it's born situations where she did not, in fact, figure it out. 3 months in, my mother insisted on adopting the baby despite the entire family advising against it. Not only could we not afford a baby, but we also didn't have any space, and we all worked long, grueling hours. Everyone was telling her not to do it, with my aunt even offering to take the baby and since she had the time, money, and no kids of her own. But my mom refused. I had no say when a lot of my stuff in my bedroom was thrown out to make room. And when I mentioned how I didn't even have a say in the baby being in my room, I was told, families make sacrifices. I was frustrated but decided not to make it a battle. I have a severe sleep disorder and knew a crying baby at night would impact my sleep and work a lot. But there wasn't anything I could say to change her mind, so I just accepted it as a new part of life. However, when the baby moved in, I was kicked out before long. My mom made it increasingly clear that I wasn't wanted at home anymore. She regularly cooked dinner, but didn't make enough for me, despite me never doing the same to them, and I was told to heat up leftovers. Still, I didn't say anything. When the baby began walking and learning how to hit, I became her favorite target. I was scolded if I complained or moved when she came up and slapped me. Sometimes, my mother would even watch to see what I would do when she saw the baby approaching me. Apparently, quietly getting up and stepping out of the room after getting hit was not the response she wanted. I never once raised my voice or harmed the baby, but not actively praising her for hitting my laptop while I was filing my taxes was apparently the worst thing I could have done. Eventually, I got fed up and confronted my mom about it. I told her she wanted the baby in the house. I never signed up for it. If she wanted the baby praised and doted on, she could do it herself and not push me to do it when I was clearly busy or didn't appreciate being constantly hit. My mom retorted again that I had to make sacrifices and that it was part of being an adult. In awe, I was stunned into silence and just walked away. From that day on, she was much colder to me. She sighed every time she saw me out of my room, kicked me out of the living room if I was watching TV on my day off, and stopped grocery shopping altogether. She actively avoided buying food, only purchasing baby food, while she ate during her lunch break. It was petty, I thought, so I simply bought my own food, and nobody in the house would make dinner anymore. When that didn't bother me, she started another tactic complaining that I shouldn't be living at home when I'm over 18 and sending me housing listings. I looked at them every time, but there was always something wrong. Either the rent was $5,000, the place was run down and falling apart, it was too far to commute to work, or it was in a dangerous neighborhood. It's not that I was picky, my only requirements were that it be safe, in working order, and affordable. I didn't care about anything else when it came to housing, and I felt my requirements were fairly reasonable. One day, a friend came over to pick me up for a birthday party. I ran to my room to grab my things and the gift I had prepared, and I overheard my mom talking before I walked back out. She was complaining to my friend that I still lived there and suggested it would be good for us to find a place as roommates. Embarrassed and annoyed, I returned, and a small argument ensued between the three of us, ending when I opened up the rental page to look at the listings in front of her. She happened to find something in an apartment that was way too far to commute to and barely affordable, but she made me apply for it in front of her. I thought, whatever, there's no guarantee I'll get it. Well, I was accepted, along with my new roommate. Within a week, my things were moved out, and the moment I was gone, my mom began doing renovations and throwing house parties. Not relevant, but in case anyone is curious, I got to work by cab from there. One issue that came up was my bed and frame. I wanted to take them with me. It was a perfectly fine bedded double, with a fitting frame and a drawer underneath for storage. I had it since high school, but it was in fantastic condition. She refused to let me take it and insisted it should just go to the dump and that she'd buy me a new one. My aunt offered to get me a new one first. She said I was an adult and should have a queen-size bed rather than a double, and she would get it for me. I was super excited, and we picked out the perfect one. She promised she'd get it for me when she got paid the following month, and I thanked her profusely. Since she was getting me a new bed, I said it was okay for my mom to trash my old one and stopped resisting. Then, suddenly, my mom told me she found me a brand new mattress. I didn't know this at the time, but she secretly told my aunt not to get me anything because she was getting it instead, and my aunt thought I knew, so the promised mattress never came. I believed this one was temporary until I got the new one. My mom let me believe that for about 2 months. She brought it over and said, I didn't need to buy one after all. A friend of mine gave me theirs. It's still new. It was significantly smaller than my first bed, but I didn't want to seem ungrateful, so I accepted it. It was a twin, and at my size, I could barely fit on it, but I was grateful to have a bed. Only one issue: it was new to me. The bed had some gross stains on it of various colors. I simply covered them with a mattress cover, thinking, this is my bed now, it's all right, I'll get the real bed soon. My aunt wanted to keep helping, though, and said she would get me a frame for the twin so I could get off the ground. When the new frame arrived, she insisted on a video call to see it all set up. I showed her the built frame and bed, and she asked how I liked it. The conversation went a bit like this. Aunt, so, what do you think? Are you excited? Me, yes, it's great. I was able to put it together. Thank you. Aunt, you're welcome. What about your covers? Do they fit? Me, yeah, they're all right. I was kinda looking forward to the one we picked out, though. Aunt, I know, but at least you got a new bed. Me, true. There is a small problem with it, though. Aunt, a problem? What? Your mom said it was brand new. Me, well, it's new to me. It kinda came with some stains. Aunt, what? Are you serious? Let me see. I showed her the stains. They weren't tiny either. They were massive, taking up half of the bottom bed with thick, dark colors. When she saw, she was in shock. Aunt, oh my goodness, that is not okay. Where did your mom get it? Me, she said she got it from a friend for free. The friend said it was unused, though. Aunt, I knew your mom would cheap out. She told me not to get you one. Me, huh? No, I was really excited about the one we chose. I didn't want to say anything. I was just happy to have a bed. I was looking forward to that mattress for months. Aunt, no, not okay. You've been sleeping on that for months. Please tell me you have a mattress cover. Your mom said it was brand new out of the box. That needs to be dumped immediately. Tell you what, I'll get you the new mattress, and your mom and I will go halves on it. It didn't take long for my mom to be called out on the mattress, and she agreed to pay for half of a new one. So I went to the mattress store to check for new ones. The one my aunt and I looked at was already gone, and I found one. When I called my mom, though, she said she couldn't go halves because she had just paid for something and was broke, leaving my aunt to cover almost the entire bill. To prevent a fight, she contributed around $40. I was going to help, but my aunt refused to accept anything because I'm still in a rough financial spot due to my new rent, while also saying it was supposed to be my mom, not me. About a week later, I visited my mom to pick up some mail, only to see that she couldn't afford the mattress because she had bought a giant plastic playhouse for the baby. There was a mini one in the bedroom already, but she felt the baby needed a big one outside in case her playmates came over. I can't help but feel there are some lingering feelings of resentment from when I wouldn't engage with the baby the way she wanted me to, but I've stopped fighting it. At least someone is on my side right now. I know I'm an adult, and I should be responsible for myself, so I often feel like I'm being selfish and ungrateful about the whole situation. But I wasn't financially ready to leave, and she knew that. I even tried to make it up to her by cooking, paying half the rent, doing chores, and staying out of the main rooms as best I could, but also forcing me to throw out my good bed to replace it with a stranger's free used mattress is probably unreasonable, right? Feeling this petty towards your own kid definitely seems like entitled parent behavior to me. Sorry if this ran on long, but I felt it wouldn't make sense without the full context. I'm on mobile too. The real new mattress is being delivered next week, fingers crossed. Thank you again, Auntie. I definitely don't have the verbal skills you do.